Here are 11 pivotal moments that defined the 24-25 championship season. I've got one a month for you. Get yours down there in the comments. We'll start in July where Adi Vivash left Coventry. Assistant manager, leaves club. Big news? I don't know. Well, it turned out that way because it's one of those well-worn cliches in football that people like to sound very clever by saying, you see, it's the assistant manager who's the brains behind that operation. Well, I'm always a bit suspicious of that take, but was Mark Robins the same? Were Coventry the same after Vivash went? Absolutely not. And take a team tipped for the top 6, top 4, maybe a real good squad, a real promotion contender, and things went south very quickly. Robins was out. Frank Lampard did pick it back up and get Coventry into the playoffs. How different would things have been had Coventry functioned the way they did in the second half of the season, all the way through the season? And was all of that down to the breaking up of the partnership of Vivash and Robins that had taken Coventry all the way up the leagues previously? Who knows? Let's go into August and a worrying interview from Luton manager Rob Edwards. Very easy to be wise after the event with things like this. Luton lost 2-1 at home to QPR. We covered it on the watch along. And Sam Parkin and myself had a chat on the Championship Check-In podcast, which you can watch back right now, where we said, Rob Edwards doesn't look quite right, doesn't he? Old handsome Rob, super charisma, going, viral in his post-match conversations in the Premier League as Luton manager. All of a sudden, looks a bit like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. Doesn't look like normal handsome Rob. And we're like, is everything all right there? Is this going to work out okay? And again, easy to be wise after the event. But there was another one of these, game 15 against Middlesbrough. That was game 4, by the way, against QPR, where he virtually seemed to be resigning. But Luton then went another 11 games before Rob Edwards was indeed sacked. Okay, would things have changed? We don't know. But the warning signs were there from the start of the season that, I don't know, had Rob Edwards lost his mojo there as the Luton manager, they end up double relegation in League One. Should the Luton board have spotted that and acted much, much sooner, i.e. 22 games sooner. Easier to say now, but it felt like a big red flag at the time. Let's go into September. Descent. September the 21st. Oxford go into a game at Bristol City in 7th place in the championship table. They'd started really, really well. Oxford, we said, could they get their momentum from their brilliant end to the season in League One and their playoff victory? Yes, they did. What happens next? They lose the game at Bristol City. One win in the next 15 going into December. And Des Buckingham, which a lot of people said at the time, this is a terrible decision. You can't sack Des Buckingham. Look what he's done. That's terribly harsh. But Oxford went on this run, which started in September, and they did sack him. And in the cold, cold light of day, it's probably what saved them, this bad run, because in comes Gary Rowett, and in very surprising fashion, given, the Oxford squad compared to others down there, and the incredible high tide we got in the Championship, Rowett pulls up the nose, has a great run at the start of the season, and then goes again, the start of his tenure, through late December and early January, and then goes again at the end of the season. We talked about the capacity to keep clean sheets, win games 1-0, win home games. Oxford survive, and their survival kind of starts with that terrible run in September under previous manager Des Buckingham. Let's go into October, and a biting ban for Militon Osmajic, the Preston striker. This doesn't quite have the knock-on sliding doors monumental effects that some of the other kind of pivotal moments we've put up here does. But in terms of most shocking moments, and Osmajic is going to be in the news later in the season again, the Preston striker ends up biting Owen Beck on the shoulder, the collar, the back, the neck. I don't know, you tell me. And this is in September, by the way, but in October, the EFL give him an 8-match ban. As I say, maybe not the most pivotal, but certainly one of the most shocking moments of the EFL Championship season. Let's go into November, and it is a Colby comeback. On November the 9th, Portsmouth play Preston, and leading up to that, they are the worst side in the EFL Championship. Okay, difficult fixtures, difficult start, but things are not looking good for John Mousinho and Pompey, and things have been looking really bad for Colby Bishop in the summer, who obviously missed the start of the season through heart problems. Very, very worrying, bigger than football kind of stuff there. But he is back and ready to go in November. And it's a nice narrative. I'm not saying his return is completely responsible for this, but the second that Colby Bishop gets back, he scores off the bench in a victory against Preston. And pre-Bishop, Portsmouth are the worst side in the division. Post Bishop's return, they are the 9th best side in the division. We talk about the high tide at the bottom. That's what it took to get them away from trouble. They had to be, from the start of November, 9th best in the division. They survived. Bishop's great. He's a vital component of that team. Murphy wakes up. I don't know if having Bishop alongside him helps up, or, just everything starts moving. Then brilliant stuff from Pompey. But it all begins with the Colby comeback at the start of November. And at Christmas time, solid streak. That's a bit of an understatement, because Burnley are already midway through a 33-game undefeated streak here. But I don't think that's what Burnley are going to be remembered for this season. And they are going to be remembered for an extraordinary season, 100 points. They're not going to be remembered for 100 points, by the way. They're going to be remembered for the greatest defence the Championship has ever seen. Mr. Trafford, Mr. Esteve, Egan Riley, Roberts and Perez, that back 4-5 set up by Scott Parker. Okay, it's a team game. You mentioned the whole team. But from December the 26th, this is a vital win because they go to promotion rivals Sheffield United and win 12 straight clean sheets from December. I don't know how long, that must go into February, mustn't it? A 12-game run there. Incredible. And when you talk about Burnley's promotion, I'll repeat myself. People are not going to say 33 undefeated. They're not going to say 100 points. They're going to say, oh, James Trafford, what a keeper, what a defence. Remember all those clean sheets. Nobody could score against Burnley. And it was really exemplified in that period through December. Let's get into January. Latte last, and we're talking about Middlesbrough here, and we talked about what possibly took Coventry maybe out of the top 4 race. They got back into the top 6 race. What probably takes Middlesbrough out of the playoff race, and really, when you look at it, if you're a Bristol City fan, kind of opens the door for Bristol City to end up in there. It is January the 18th, and Middlesbrough go into a game at Pompey. They go 1-0 up, and Emmanuel Latte-Lath scores for Borough, their star striker. And at that point, they're going to go 5th in the table, and they're looking very good for a playoff place. They're scoring lots of goals, creating lots of chances, great underlying metrics, all of that good stuff. Not going to be in the top 4 race, but looking very good to finish the season in the playoffs at that point. That is Emmanuel Latte-Lath's, put my teeth in, last goal for the club, because he's going to go off and play in MLS. They're going to cash in, big sale. Also, not long after that, Ben Doak, the on loan winger, gets injured as well. And all of a sudden, the Borough fans are kind of feeling, oh, all those chances we were making, all those goals we were scoring, it doesn't quite look the same. And that there in January appears to be the pivotal moment, the turning point there. Is that the moment that Middlesbrough kind of stepped out of the playoff race to almost open the door for Bristol City in the end to get in there. Let's go into February, and it is a get out of jail card. A release clause in the contract of John Eustace of Blackburn. And this was a big story at the time, if you remember. Blackburn up around the playoff spots themselves. I think they just had a bit of a sticky run, but it then becomes public knowledge around a Blackburn FA Cup game, I think at Wolves, that Mr. John Eustace, the Rovers manager, has in his contract a clause that allows him to talk to other Championship clubs if, and I think it's a fairly low number, £500,000, £750,000 is paid in order, to give compensation to Blackburn for the, basically the services of their manager. And looking at it now, it's a terrible clause for Blackburn and a great clause for Derby County. It didn't look good immediately as Eustace went in. They lost 4-0 at QPR, but definitely a great escape in the end. And really, you can put all of the credit on to John Eustace. And dare I say, if it wasn't for that clause, could Eustace have got out of Blackburn and into Derby? And would the fate of those two clubs have been anywhere like what it was? I don't think so. Let's get into March and talk about champions Leeds United. And here comes the final tweak for Daniel Farke. I mean, he did a great job, 100 points. But there was one thing he didn't want to do, but it ended up that he needed to do. Nobody wants to change their keeper. Do that. It's the most difficult kind of change you can make, the most unsettling change for players and fan base to pull out the keeper. He tried to be so loyal to Illan Meslier in the face of a couple of very high-profile mistakes. Remember that one at Sunderland, right late in the game there, throws one in, doesn't he? There were others, and the Leeds fan base and the public and the press got less and less forgiving. But when it got to the end of March, it's a game against Swansea, and really, I think he drops across, doesn't he, for the first Swansea goal. And a late 96th minute, was it Vipotnik? Shot on the angle, he should save it. Meslier shouldn't, he threw his hands, in it goes. And Daniel Farke has to make the big call that, let's be honest, he didn't really want to make. If he could have ridden out the season with Meslier in goal, I think he would have. But he makes the big call. He doesn't want to unsettle his team. And it doesn't unsettle his team. In comes Darlow. There's one more draw there at Luton. And then Leeds winning streak to end the season. Land on 100 points and win the title. But it did need that one final tweak. Farke talked about the emotionality. Is that a word? I think he's speaking in his second language of Leeds United. And as I say, that decision could have gone south. It didn't. It went exactly the right way. And here we are with Leeds finishing with 100 points and in the Premier League. And that final tweak, Meslier out on March the 29th. April, I mean, probably the most key moment in the title race. Blades bust. And it was an incredible high leverage value, 100 points for two teams at the top. Sheffield United end up on 92, a total that in years gone by would have got you promoted. Are we in a new era now with the parachute teams where it's, it's not 2 points per game? You need more than that. You need 95 to be promoted automatically. You would have needed even more than that this season, up there around the 100 mark. Incredible. What you cannot afford to do, therefore, at any point in the season, is take a classic championship 3-game week, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, or Friday, or however it adds up, and lose all 3 games. Forgive me, I don't think Leeds or Burnley lost back-to-back all season, did they? So that was the standard. Oxford, this is straight after Leeds had swapped Meslier for Darlow as well. They lose at Oxford to Sheffield United. They lose at home to Millwall. And they lose at bottom of the table Plymouth, having led the game. That was the big bust. A massive swing that week. 0 points for the Blades. Absolutely vital. That is what turned the automatic promotion battle massively in favour of Leeds and Burnley. And it meant that a head-to-head just 2 games later between Burnley and Sheffield United was basically the promotion decider. Burnley won that game, so that was 4 defeats in 5 for Sheffield United. The Blades bust, which put them in the playoffs. They're in the final, but that was the key moment in the automatic promotion race. And finally, speaking of the playoffs, okay, it's a post-season moment, but what a moment as Sunderland reached the final against Coventry in what's probably going to go down as a classic playoff moment. 2-1 to Sunderland first leg. Coventry win the second leg 1-0 in normal time. Off we go to extra time. We are going to penalty shootouts. 2 minutes of stoppage time added at the end of extra time. The clock is ticking down, literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Across comes a corner. All Coventry have got to do is head the ball. Head the ball anywhere, and the referee is blowing, and we go to penalties, and history changes in that second. But no, Dan Ballard, the centre-half, steps up, heads the ball in, strangely kind of crouching down as he jumps in off the bar. Pandemonium, limbs, and a playoff moment for the ages up at the stadium of like, what a moment. And that gives us a playoff final of Sheffield United versus Sunderland. Wow. What a moment. Those are 11 pivotal moments that defined the 24-25 championship season. Thank you, by the way. I put just a cryptic post out on YouTube yesterday in the kind of community section. Thank you for the people that helped and replied. You will know exactly who you are, because a few of you, particularly on the Latte Laugh, the Vivash, Dropping Melier, a few of you, I have taken your advice and used that as my pivotal moment. So really, really great thanks to the community there, the subscribers on the Benjamin Bloom Football channel, for your help there. Get involved down there in the comments. Normally, I don't want people to obsess and see the world through the prism of their own club. A lot of people just see football through the lens of the club they support. In this instance, you probably can. So just give me one moment. What is the pivotal moment for the club you support? And get up there as well. This video is doing quite well, actually. People are interested in this. That's a look back at last season. This is a look ahead at next season and what the EFL Championship could look like in 25-26.